I actually have, we might as well say, a bipolar diagnosis. It's manic depressive. It's another name for this illness. You can be manic, you can be very depressed is the other place to be. So I do have mood swings. Throughout my career, people know that there were tough times, but I don't mean to make an excuse about it. I'm still responsible for my actions.
An unavoidable element of the Faye Dunaway legend is that she's temperamental and hard to work with. She's difficult. And in your documentary, perhaps one of the first times that I'm aware, she actually addresses this herself. Did you find her challenging to work with on this?
You know, I would say that each time I've tackled a film, particularly a biographical film, it's very hard because you're forced to really examine yourself, and it's not something everybody's equipped to do. So I would say that at the same time, the harder it is, the better I think the film's gonna be. And so I embrace that as part of the challenge. Faye, has worked with a script her entire life or her entire career, each time she's been on stage or on screen. And this was the stage of her own life on screen, but without a script. So it was difficult to convince her, even though she was very open to having several discussions about it, but eventually found a level of trust, and it was very successful, albeit extremely hard for both of us. And the result is pretty much on screen. I didn't want this to feel like a vanity project, or hide from anything. I told her the cameras would always be running and that it was in my control. She wasn't asking for a final cut or anything, so she was extremely courageous and generous, albeit it was showtime. It was tough.
I love the opening sequence in the documentary where you've cut in some of those comments that she's making. Get a move on. We're waiting for the cameras to roll. I'm here.
Can we shoot? We need to shoot. I'm here now. Come on. I really would like to shoot. I'm sitting here. I really would like to shoot. This is the worst seat in the world. I'm not happy with anything here. I want to sit at an angle. I don't want to sit straight on. I need a glass of water, not a bottle.
Got it. Hold on.
Faye, put down the book.
Put down the book.
In a minute.
Okay. You tell me when you're ready, Faye.
Ready. Are we rolling?
Okay, is this the beginning of another tantrum? But you obviously handled her really well. Did you have a previous relationship with her?
I had met her, but I can't say that she immediately placed me when we got reignited, but I certainly placed her. and
Of course.
And I knew it was doing interviews is always difficult, but this was not really what I would call a conventional interview. This is a close-up. I always refer to the people I film as close-ups. I hate when I read in the press, talking head documentary. I find that so insulting because I work so hard, at framing those interviews and trying to really stay with the face, because you learn so much by attitudes and reading them. Really, just like she's working without a script, I'm also free falling and hoping that I can live up to her expectation as much as I'm hoping that I'm gonna get something like gold.
Were there times during the shoot that you felt, we're close to a cliff here, I'm in danger of losing her, I've gone too far?
It was interesting the first day of filming, which was potentially the roughest because it was the beginning, and we're actually doing it, and the reality of it hits you, on full on. At one point of the discussion, I said, "Oh my God, let's talk about you being a mom," and situation with Liam, and she said, "I don't want to talk about that." I'm like, okay. So I immediately jumped into something else because again, we're having a discussion, so it's not like I'm not marking things off. And I know that of all the things that she had agreed to discuss, the adoption of her son was very, very, very potentially the hardest thing for her to talk about. She had never talked about it. She had never even written about it in her own autobiography.
Why
So,
was it hard for her to deal with that topic?
well, I mean, she hopefully explains it clearly in the film, because the next day, we're having a casual conversation, filming, talking about movies, whatever, and she starts saying out of nowhere, I know I have to talk about the adoption and about Liam. I said, Faye, it's up to you. This is, this is a moment that I know is very hard. It's up to you. And she started crying. And we all started crying. I have a small crew, but we're all like crying, and I'm begging my DP not to move the camera, not to cut or anything. And she delivered this speech about the importance for her to, in her life, she wanted to be a mother, but she had devoted her life to her craft and her career, and it was too late for her to have, a child.
Oh, God. There's nothing that's more important to me. I don't know why. I was most important to my mother. She had her heart set always on having a child, and she planned for it, and I don't know whether I got that from her as I was growing up, but it meant very much to me. And there came a moment where the work had taken over to the point where it was too late, really, for me to have a child in a biological sense. So I found my son, Liam, and I adopted him with Terry. And I was overjoyed, really, when it evolved the way that it did, because I certainly know that he's everything to me, everything.
This business is so hard, and people can't wait to get into your business, that she wanted her child to be really protected and not victimized by the media, by everything that goes around movie stars. It came from the place of wanting to protect, her own privacy about her process and her journey to motherhood, but also wanted to protect her child.
Of course, it's one of the most moving sequences in the film.
Yeah.
And Liam comes across as a really level-headed bloke who's been there supporting his mum through some terrible times, but also through some wonderful times too. As an adopted parent myself, I know some of the issues that are involved in them. It's not easy. She certainly has a lot of reasons to be difficult to work with and perceived as temperamental. I mean, as a child, she was constantly moving and never stayed in one place more than a year or so because her dad was in the army. Then there was the alcoholism, which she's honest about. And of course, the diagnosis of manic depression. And she's so honest about those things. Of course, without that honesty, we don't have a documentary. Did you want to push even deeper than you did, or were you completely happy with what she gave you in response to your questions?
I was very happy by where she went with this. When I got started, I didn't know that she had acknowledged and gone through treatment for bipolar disorder. I didn't know that. And also, here's the thing, you know, she's still a very privileged person, big icon. And she wanted to be very careful that she didn't position herself as a victim. And she clearly says, and it was important to me that she did, that she's responsible. She's still responsible for her action, and that sometimes she has been tough, and she's sorry about that, and she's hurt people, and she's sorry about that, but that she recognizes where it comes from. And so I think that she wanted to, and she told me that she said, listen, I don't want to be a poster child for a disease that I've had the privilege of going to great doctors and getting treatment. Some people don't have the ability to do that. And I want to be very careful that I'm not, glorifying myself in the face of other people who may be suffering of the same thing and don't have the ability to have the kind of treatment that I'm lucky enough to be able to afford and receive.
The other problem that she had to deal with was a more common problem for Hollywood, was the fact that she was a woman. And
Yep.
Female stars weren't allowed to have balls. She was pretty strong and she knew what she needed and she knew what she wanted and she wasn't prepared to compromise. And unfortunately, she paid a price for that alone, which is definitely not fair. I mean, there's that famous scene in Chinatown, which sort of encapsulates the fact that Roman Polanski felt that he had the right to with the niggly hair that was disturbing his shot, he could just simply walk up to her and pull it out of her head. I mean, that's a terrible affront.
It's a two-shot of Faye and Jack. Originally, she didn't have the hat on. As we're about to shoot, one hair on Faye's head just stuck up. So Roman said, Faye, you have one hair. Can you just, and Faye went, okay, and put it down. And I said, okay, ready, and the hair popped up. Roman literally walks around and pulls the hair out of Faye's head.
That's enough to set off the manic depression. And I said, well, it was offensive. You don't do that.
Finally, we got her back to the set, and she shot it with a hat on, so we didn't have to worry about the hair popping up.
I think you know all you need know about me.
Wearing a hat didn't really cover over the problem, did it?
Well, no, I mean, I think that there are a lot of male actors who behaved equally as difficult. I've seen it. I've been on so many movie sets. I've been on the receiving end of other actors being, extremely difficult to talk to. And I really think that she's been, villainized in a way because she's a woman and because it kind of started at a time where I think it was the 70s, was a different dialogue. Mark Harris, the historian, even refers to when they were casting Bonnie, who is going to be the girl, as opposed to the woman, the actor. So I really feel that she has, it's very unfair and it's very sexist.
She also copped a lot of flack for Mommy Dearest, and what surprised me, she seems to agree with the critics, and she puts an awful lot at the feet of the director, Frank Perry, and he says, look, I'm a professional. He should have reined me in.
No wire hangers! What's wire hangers doing in this closet when I told you no wire hangers ever? You live in the most beautiful house in Brentwood, and you don't care if your clothes look scratched from wire hangers.
Mara Hobel was the little girl that I had to hit, and I was crazy worried about it and very sympathetic, and I tried to make sure she was all right and that we had done it in such a way that she didn't actually get hurt. Frank Perry didn't help me shape the scenes. I wish he had come in and said, come on, Faye, that's too far. Come on, pull it back. I mean, I'm a professional. I would have done that.
Yeah, and I really agree with her. I saw the movie when I was a young man in France. Frankly, I hated it. I just thought this is truly an awful movie. I did not like the film, and I didn't like the direction.
Don't fuck with me, fellas! This ain't my first time at the rodeo.
Liam makes a comment in passing. He makes the observation that if she hadn't have been in that much pain in real life, would have she been as good on screen? That's a very interesting question too, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the privilege of knowing a lot of incredible artists, and I think a lot of great artists carry a lot of pain. That is part of what makes them great artists, because their feelings are very intensely felt. She put in a lot of herself in those roles, but it's not to say that she is those characters, that's a different thing. But I think that she recognizes the intensity of playing Chinatown or playing Bonnie Parker or playing even Laura Mars. I think that she's so intense a person that she can really invest that intensity into those characters. It was Cazelle who said to her, those That intensity is what is going to make you great. And I think that happened to her very early on. And I think she took it really to an extreme.
We just increased our audience by 20 or 30 million people in one night. Now, you're not going to get something like this dumped in your lap for the rest of your days, and you can't just piss it away. Howard Beale went up there last night and said what every American feels, that he's tired of all the bullshit. He's articulating the popular rage. I want that show, Frank. I can turn that show into the biggest smash on television.
It's a news show. It's not your department.
I see Howard Beale as a latter-day prophet. A magnificent messianic figure inveighing against the hypocrisies of our times. A strip Savonarola Monday through Friday that, I tell you, Frank, could just go through the roof. Do you want to figure out the revenues of a strip show that sells for $100,000 a minute? One show like that could pull this whole network right out of the hole. Now, Frank, it's being handed to us on a plate. Let's not blow it.
For God's sakes, Diana, we're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
I think that probably, to some degree, affected her, deeply.
Yeah, even she admits that her experience of alcoholism played into her performance in Barfly.
Yeah.
When you run off like this, I feel like you're trying to get away from me.
Hey, baby, I'm doing this for us. We'll be able to drink with class. We don't have to be barflies right down to the grave.
Even Mickey Rourke, who is also a very intense personality,
Pour me one then.
shares in my film that he could relate to that role as well. So you had two people there with a very intense reputation. And as Mickey Rourke said, they were all waiting to see who was going to crack up first. And it never fucking happened, he said.
Nothing ever works right in this life.
There's a fabulous image the night after she won the Academy Award for Network.
On March 29th, 1977, you took this picture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Show the picture to camera. When you look at this picture today, what do you see?
Well, I remember the moment. I had won the Oscar for Network the night before, and closer to 5 o'clock, Terry O'Neill tried to persuade me to come to the pool at dawn when the sun came up, because he didn't want a traditional kind of picture with the actor standing with the Oscar and that. But he staged this.
Is she saying, was it worth it? Is she saying, I finally arrived? Or is she saying, is that all there is?
On one hand, you have the glamour of Hollywood, getting an Oscar, the ultimate recognition from your peers. At the same time, on the ground is this newspaper about Peter Finch, her co-star in Network.
But what I loved is that all there is was kind of a theme to it. Because at my feet are all of the morning newspapers announcing the wins, and also a posthumous Peter Finch Oscar, because he passed away 3 months earlier.
You have on one hand the complete artifice of glamour and a moment of complete success, and at her feet is death. It summarizes the contradiction of cinema, where stars are immortal because we put them on film and they'll always be frozen in time, but they are mortals. And the contradiction of the moment where you potentially feel completely immortal is combined with the realization that actually, how do I top this? The hardest thing is never the Oscar. The hardest thing is longevity. Are you going to be remembered? 45 years on, you won the Oscar for Network. Go out on the street and meet young people and say, Faye Dunaway, or say Network. Who remembers? That, I think, is a lot harder to achieve than the actual Oscar and the moment. So the photo summarizes all of this to me, especially in hindsight. But I think it's a powerful image. It's a beautiful image. She's stunning. The robe is from her wardrobe in Chinatown. Definitely what she says, is that all there is? Or maybe what's next? What came next, was just as hard a journey than the climb up. I had the original 8 lobby cards from Network, and I said to Faye, "Oh, can you sign them for me?" And the first thing she said, "Look, I got top billing." And she got top billing over Peter Finch, William Holden, Robert Duvall, all men. And I think that that movie was so empowering for women, even though she was playing a character that was not necessarily sympathetic. At the same time, she was just as ruthless as any other man in the room, you know. But because it was Faye, and because it was so well written by Patty Chayefsky and directed, and that it stood out to me, that all those scenes that she's in are incredible. I love the sex scene with William Holden, where she's basically talking ratings while she's having sex. It's one of the most, ironic scenes where you have, movie star William Holden and movie star Faye Dunaway. They're in bed together. It should be a moment, right? And it's all about the ratings.
It reminded me of Jane Fonda in Clute.
Oh, yeah.
The scene with Donald Sutherland, she looks at her watch.
Yeah, Jane Fonda, another legend, but very different from Faye. Jane Fonda grew up in the business. Faye was much more like clay. I feel like she was forming herself and informing herself as she grew from the stage to the screen to everything she's done. Jane Fonda, as incredible as she is, benefited from being born in the business to quite a father.
I'm going to steal your tag from the movie when her son Liam says, she started off as a normal person trying to be famous, and she's ending it as a famous person trying to be normal.
And thank you all.
She started off as a normal person trying to be famous.
Oh yeah, that was, and I've known Liam a long time, and I've never seen him tear up, and he did. And I told my editor, I said, I want every single frame of after he finishes that sentence and he's choked up. I said, I want you to stay as long as possible. Every single frame needs to be in the film of that moment.
She started off as a normal person trying to be famous and is ending as a famous person trying to be normal.
That is the thematic of the film, that is, he spells out exactly what this film is about. The question is asked at the beginning of the film, yes, you can call her difficult, you can call her all those things, but you have to look deeper and say, where did this come from? What is this about? And then we go into the film, and the answer to that question is given by Liam at the end, because that's what storytelling is all about. Even in something like a documentary, that a lot of people, sometimes look upon those films as talking heads, and they're just like, vanity projects. It's very hurtful for people like myself who, I'm not saying I succeed all the time, but who really work really, really hard. So many people have walked into my interviews or my discussions, not wanting to do it. And I've always left, in most cases, I don't remember a case where I didn't, feeling, this was special. It's about me being the first member of the audience, right? And if I'm feeling the emotions, if I'm able to get something out of someone, then I know the public who will watch it will hopefully feel the same way.
Yeah, look, you've done a great job. You've shown us a flesh and blood person, and
Yeah,
that wasn't easy to do, and you've done a great job in doing that.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I need a glass of water, not a bottle.
Got it. Hold on. Faye, put down the book.
In a minute. So now you see what it is about me. Not easy.
Bonnie and Clyde were pretty looking people, but I can tell you people, they were the devil's children. Bonnie and Clyde sunshine, a half a dozen